Close your eyes. Now imagine that you're coming home from work late into the night, and the usual weekend scene is presenting itself in your neighborhood. You've got cars of party people lining the streets, loud music is blasting in several directions, and the usual crowd of thugs, drug dealers, and gangbangers surround the area near your home. And as soon as your coworker drops you off in front of your house, you quickly walk across the yard to make it inside. And as soon as you shut the door behind you, you hear pow, pow, gunshots right outside your door. So you drop to the floor as quickly as you can. Your heart is beating loud and fast, but you stay low until you're sure it's over. You can hear people screaming and yelling and cars screeching as they drive off. And after a few minutes, you slowly get up, walk over to the window, move the curtain to see outside. And right across the yard underneath the mailbox, you can make out a body. It's twitching and its arms over its chest. And suddenly you hear the police sirens and the helicopters hovering above, shining the spotlight down in your neighborhood. And at only 16 years old, you start to thank God that you've made it safely inside once again. Hi. The odds were truly against me to be where I am today. That's why I'd like to share my story with you on how alternative education saved me. There are many children and teens who live in poverty and in abusive homes, and some are learning English as their second language, and they're struggling in school. And I was one of them, and I wasn't supposed to make it. I was born in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico, the youngest of 5 children at the time. My mother became a widow at a very young age, and life in Mexico was extremely difficult for her. And no matter how hard she worked, she just couldn't make ends meet. My brothers, who were children still, had to go out into the streets to sell newspaper, gum, whatever they could to help support the family. It was a rough life, and my mother was desperate. By the time I was 5 years old, she was able to save up enough money to come to the USA with the hopes of a better life for our family. And as soon as we settled in the States, she worked really hard to provide for all of us. She enrolled us all in school, and she worked multiple jobs to stay afloat. And after a few years of living in a single makeshift room with dirt floors, our family finally settled into a very old house made out of adobe. The house was really small, probably no bigger than a studio apartment, and it only had 2 rooms, not 2 bedrooms, but only 2 rooms. The house also didn't have any heating or cooling, and we also didn't have any indoor plumbing. The toilet and shower were located right outside the main house, and the winters were especially harsh because we didn't have any hot water either. We'd have to heat the water on the stove, dump it in a bucket, and walk it over to the shower. And then there were the summers. Can you imagine living in Phoenix, Arizona, where the summer temperatures can reach as high as 115 degrees or more, and without AC? I don't miss that. And as for a bed of my own, I didn't have one. I slept on an old sofa until I was 19 years old. As a little girl, I loved going to school. It was such a magical place for me. I didn't have to think about home. The teachers were so nice and helpful, and the classrooms were brightly decorated with posters and letters and numbers filled the walls, unlike my house, where it was cold, dark, and gloomy, or incredibly hot in the summer. But in school, I got to be inside an air-conditioned room, and every day I had a warm meal to eat. But as I got older, the magic of school disappeared. I wasn't having so much fun anymore because it really hurt when the other kids would make fun of my clothes and my broken English. I just wasn't like them. I mean, my life at home sucked. I was ashamed of where I lived. My stepdad was a raging alcoholic, and he was very abusive. And I was embarrassed to speak my own native language because I didn't want the other kids to make fun of me. And I remember cringing when I had to translate for my mother. I was dumb, ugly, and stupid. At least that's what I was told for most of my life, and I believed it. By the time I got to high school, there was a huge drug epidemic. Crack cocaine and crystal meth addiction was rampant, and many teens were getting involved in violent gangs. I lived in a time and a place where you had to choose the color of your clothing wisely or run the risk of getting shot at or jumped in the streets of my neighborhood. I witnessed assaults and robberies in plain daylight, and I was often approached by the neighborhood crackheads when I would leave the house. Going to school just wasn't safe anymore. The place that I once considered a sanctuary was gone. The high school was overcrowded. The teachers barely knew my name. I felt like a tiny, insignificant fish in a congested pond. Lunch hour was pure madness. Fights would break out in the corridors. Lots of name-calling and shaming, and gangs and drugs filled the school. So my friends and I, we'd leave campus for lunch, and on most days, we didn't bother to come back for our afternoon classes. By my sophomore year, I was really losing interest in school. Between having to work long hours to help my mom pay the bills, a dangerous and chaotic school environment, and hanging out with my friends, I became disengaged. I was behind on credits, and I needed to repeat most of my classes. And I wasn't even thinking about college because nobody was talking to me about college. And without anyone to guide me on the importance of my education, well, I just didn't care. Besides, the rest of my friends were doing the same thing, and they didn't care about school either. Now that I think about it, I got to really know what youth at risk really means. Because you see, students from low-income families are 5 times more likely to drop out of school than students from higher-income households. And without a high school degree, individuals have a limited earning potential than compared to those with a high school or college degree. And individuals without a high school diploma are more likely to be incarcerated, become single parents, and use public assistance programs only to further perpetuate the cycle of dependency. So it's no surprise that by the second semester of my sophomore year, I was completely dropped from all of my classes. I missed so much school, and with a high truancy rate, my counselor wouldn't allow me to re-enroll. But instead, he told me something that I'll never forget. He said, "Go get your GED, because that's all you're good for." Okay, guess I'll get my GED then. So I went down to the GED center, took my placement exam, turned it in. After it was reviewed and graded, the facilitator called me over to her desk. She sat me down and she asked me, "Karla, what are you doing here?" I said, "I got kicked out of school, so I came to get my GED." "While you aced your placement exam, you need to go back to the high school and get your diploma." "No," I said, "they don't want me. They kicked me out. I missed too much school. My counselor told me to come here because that's all I'm good for." Well, he's wrong. You need to get your mom, go back to the high school, and demand that they enroll you back in. So I'm not getting my GED. So I went, grabbed my mom, went down to the school to talk to my counselor about enrolling me back in. But he wouldn't see us. Instead, we were directed to go see the dropout prevention counselor, Miss Betty Fairfax. Throughout her time at the school district, Miss Betty Fairfax made it her mission to change the lives of youth at risk by connecting struggling students like myself to higher education and employment. And it was she who told me about this alternative high school. She said I was a great candidate, and that's where I should go to get my high school diploma. But at first I was like, alternative high school? Isn't that for the really messed up kids who always get in trouble? Because that wasn't me. I just didn't bother to show up for class. But I later learned that alternative charter schools are held more accountable to show improved student achievement. And in exchange for that greater accountability, teachers and principals are given more flexibility to customize their teaching methods and curriculum. Because as we all know, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to education. Attending Genesis Academy was a game changer for me. The school provided a nurturing environment, and the students received individualized attention, which was so important for our social and emotional growth. And they kept us involved by requiring that all students do some type of volunteer work in the community and attend local events. Plus, it felt so nice to be in a smaller school with smaller class sizes. I wasn't feeling so insignificant anymore. And even though I was still facing personal challenges, the highly qualified teachers and staff like Mr. Blues, Miss Karen Callahan, and Miss Nancy Jordan, they never gave up on me. They provided me with the opportunity and the resources to reach my true potential, and they never allowed me to quit. even after finding out I was pregnant during my senior year. But even so, I was still allowed to attend evening classes to catch up on my credits, and the teachers and staff acted like mentors and counselors because not only were they helping me with my schoolwork, but they were also helping me with my personal life. They became like my extended family because I finally found the encouragement and support that I desperately needed. I was 4 months pregnant when I earned my high school diploma. But even after graduating, Genesis continued to assist me with job training and placement. And because of their help, I was able to apply, interview, and land a summer job for a Fortune 500 company in Arizona. You see, attending this alternative charter school helped me beat the odds. And by my mid-20s, I was a single mother to 2 beautiful girls. But even so, I was still able to provide them with a safe place to live, complete with indoor plumbing and all. I was able to provide them with good food to eat and nice clothes to wear, all without the use of government assistance. Oh, and that summer job I landed? Well, it led to a very successful 11-year career at this company, where I started as an administrative assistant, and I worked my way up to a prime position where I was buying, selling, and trading electricity in a complex trading organization. And by the time I was 29 years old, I was making way more money than I could have ever imagined. But you see, I wasn't supposed to make it. My daughters and I are not supposed to be where we are today, because by being a youth at risk, statistics shows that I should have been either dead at a young age, in jail, or stuck in the cycle of poverty, domestic violence, and on welfare dependent on government assistance. But I broke that cycle. My salvation was a small charter school that believed that all students, no matter the circumstances or the challenges they face, have the right to live a beautiful and prosperous life just like everybody else. Genesis is still in operation today, and they are changing the lives of many youth at risk in the Phoenix area. See, they've made it their mission to not just teach a subject or have their students pass an exam, but they make sure that their students know that they could and should surpass the low expectations set by others. Attending this alternative charter school not only saved my life, but it put me on a path to success, and it gave me and my children the opportunity to succeed in life. Thank you.